another darker version of your question is, if we keep all the material possessions we have, but we start knocking out some percent of the population, how resilient is the system that we built up, where we rely on other humans and the knowledge that's built up on the past, the distributed nature of knowledge? How much does it take? How many humans need to disappear for us to be completely lost?
Well, I'm trying to go off one thing, which is Elon Musk says that he has this number 1 million in mind as the rough order of magnitude of people you need to be on Mars to truly be multiplanetary.
Yeah.
Multiplanetary doesn't mean, like when Neil Armstrong, goes to the moon, they call it a great leap for mankind.
Yeah.
It's not a great leap for anything. It is a great achievement for mankind. Mm-hmm. And I always think about if the first fish to kind of go on land just kind of went up and gave the shore a high five and goes back into the water. That's not a great leap for life. That's a great achievement for that fish. And there should be a little statue of that fish and it's, in the water, and everyone should celebrate the fish. But but when we talk about a great leap for life, it's permanent. It's something that from now on, this is how things are. So, yes. And this is part of why I get so excited about Mars, by the way, is because you can count on one hand, the number of great leaps that we've had, no life to life and single cell or simple cell to complex cell and single cell organisms to animals to, multi-cell animals, and then ocean to land, and then one planet to 2 planets. Anyway, diversion. But the point is that we are officially, that leap for all of life, has happened once the ships could stop coming from Earth because there's some horrible catastrophic World War III and everyone dies on Earth and they're fine and they can turn that certain X number of people into 7 billion, population that's thriving just like Earth. They can build ships that can come back and recolonize Earth because now we are officially multiplanetary where it's a self-sustaining. He says 1 million people is about what he thinks. Now, that might be a specialized group. That's a very specifically, selected million that has very, very skilled million people, not just maybe the average million on Earth. But I think it depends what you're talking about. But I don't think, so 1 million is 1/7,000th, 1/8,000th of the current population. I think you need a very, very, very small fraction of humans on Earth to get by. Obviously, you're not going to have the same thriving civilization if you get to a too small a number, but it depends who you're killing off, I guess, is part of the question. Yeah. If you killed off half of the people just randomly right now, I think we'd be fine. It would be obviously a great, awful tragedy. I think if you killed off 3/4 of all people randomly, just 3 out of every 4 people drops dead, I think we'd have, obviously, the stock market would crash. We'd have a rough patch. But I almost can assure you that the species would be fine.
Well, because the million number, like you said, it is specialized. So I think because you have to do this, you have to basically do the iPhone experiment. Like literally, you have to be able to manufacture computers.
Yeah, everything. If you're going to have the self-sustaining, means you can any major important skill, any important piece of kind of infrastructure on Earth can be built there in this just as well.
It'd be interesting to list out what are the important things, what are the important skills.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to feed everyone, so mass farming, things like that. You have mining. These questions, it's like the materials might be I don't know 5 miles, 2 miles underground. I don't know what the actual, but it's amazing to me just that these things got built in the first place. And no one built the mine that we're getting stuff for the iPhone for probably wasn't built for the iPhone, or in general, early mining, was for, I think obviously I assume that the Industrial Revolution, when we realized, fossil fuels, we want to extract this magical energy source. I assume that mining took a huge leap without knowing very much about this. I think, you're going to need mining. You're going to need a lot of electrical engineers. If you're going to have a civilization like ours, and of course you could have oil and lanterns, we could go way back. But if you're trying to build our today thing, you're going to need energy and electricity, and mines that can bring materials, and then you're going to need a ton of plumbing and everything that entails.
Yeah, and like you said, food, but also the manufacturer. So turning raw materials into something useful.
Yeah,
that whole thing, factories, some supply chain, transportation.
Right. You think about when we talk about world hunger. One of the major problems is there's plenty of food, and by the time it arrives, most of it's gone bad in the truck. In a kind of an impoverished place. So it's we take it so for granted. All the food in the supermarket is fresh. It's all there, and which always stresses me. If I were running a supermarket, I would always be so like miserable about like things going bad on the shelves, or if you don't have enough, that's not good. But if you have too much, it goes bad anyway.
Of course, there would be entertainers too. Like somebody would have a YouTube channel that's running on Mars. There is something different about a civilization on Mars and Earth existing versus like a civilization in the United States versus Russia and China. Like that's a fundamentally different distance. Like philosophically.
Will it be like fuzzy? We know there'll be like a reality show on Mars that everyone on Earth is obsessed with. And, if people are going back and forth enough, then it becomes fuzzy. It becomes like, oh, our friends on Mars, and there's like this Mars versus Earth, and it become like fun tribalism. I think if people don't rarely go back and forth, and they're there for, I think it could get kind of like, oh, we hate, a lot of like us versus them stuff going on.
There could be also war in space for territory. As first colony happens, China, Russia, or whoever, different European nations, Switzerland finally gets their act together and starts wars. This is supposed to staying out.
Yeah,
of
there's all kinds of crazy geopolitical things that like we have not even, no one's really even thought about too much yet. That could get weird. Think about the 1500s when it was suddenly like a race to like, colonize or capture land or discover new land that hasn't been, So it was like this new frontiers. Right? And there's not really, the land is not, the thing about Crimea was like this huge thing because this tiny peninsula switched. That's how like optimized everything has become. Everything is just like really stuck. Mm-hmm. Mars is a whole new world of like, territory, fighting for naming things, and and it's a chance for new kind of governments, maybe, or maybe it's just the colonies of these governments. So we don't get that opportunity. I think it would be cool if there's new countries being, totally new experiments.
Yeah, and that's fascinating because Elon talks exactly about that, and I believe that very much. Like that should be like from the start, they should determine their own sovereignty. Like they should determine their own thing.
There was one modern democracy in late 1700s, the U.S. I mean, it was the only modern democracy, and now, of course, there's hundreds or many dozens. But I think part of the reason that was able to start, I mean, it's not that people didn't have the idea. People had the idea. It was that they had a clean slate, new place, mm-hmm. And they suddenly were, So I think it would be a great opportunity to have. There's a lot of people who have done that, if I had my own government on an island, my own country, what would I do? And it's the U.S. founders actually had the opportunity, that fantasy. They were like, we can do it. Let's make, what's the perfect country? Mm-hmm. And they tried to make something. Sometimes progress it's not held up by our imagination. It's held up by just, there's no, blank canvas to try something on.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for a fresh start. The funny thing about the conversation we're having is not often had. I mean, even by Elon, he's so focused on Starship and actually putting the first human on Mars. I think thinking about this kind of stuff is inspiring. It makes us dream. It makes us hope for the future. So, and it makes us somehow like thinking about a civilization on Mars is helping us think about the civilization here on Earth.
Yeah,
how totally. We should run it. Well, what do you think are, like in our lifetime, are we gonna, I think any effort that goes to Mars, the goal is in this decade. Do you think that's actually going to be achieved?
I have a big bet, $10,000 with a friend when I was drunk in an argument.
This is great.
That the Neil Armstrong of Mars, whoever he or she may be, will set foot by the end of 2030. Now, this was probably 2018 when I had this argument.
So, like, what if
a human has to touch Mars by the end of 2030?
Oh, by the year 30.
Yeah, by January 1st, 2031.
Yeah.
So,
did you agree on the time zone or what?
No. Yeah, if it's coming on that exact day, that's going to be really stressful. But, but anyway, I think that there will be. That was 2018. I was more confident then. I think it's going to be around this time. I mean, I still won the general bet because his point was, you are crazy. This is not going to happen in our lifetimes, or not for many, many decades. Yeah. And I said, you're wrong. You don't know what's going on in SpaceX. I think if the world depended on it, I think probably SpaceX could probably, I mean, I don't know this, but I think the tech is almost there. Like, I don't think, of course, it's delayed many years by safety. So they first want to send a ship, around Mars, and they want to land a cargo ship on Mars.
And there's the moon on the way too.
Yeah. There's a lot, but I think the moon a decade before seemed like magical tech that humans didn't have. This is like, no, we can. It's totally conceivable that this, you've seen Starship, like it is a interplanetary colonial or interplanetary transport like system. That's what they used to call it. The SpaceX, the way they do it is every time they do a launch, something fails usually, when they're testing, and they learn 1,000 things. The amount of data they get, and they improve. So each one it's like they've moved up like 8 generations in each one. Anyway, so it's not inconceivable that pretty soon they could send a Starship to Mars and land it. There's just no good reason, I don't think, that they couldn't do that. And so if they could do that, they could, in theory, send a person to Mars pretty soon. Now, taking off from Mars and coming back, again, I don't think anyone would want to be on that voyage today, because there's just, it's still amateur hour here, getting that perfect. But I don't think we're too far away now. The question is, every 26 months, Earth laps Mars. Right? It's like the sinusoidal orbit or whatever it's called, the period. 26 months. So it's right now like in the evens, like 2022 is going to have one of these, late 2024. So this was the earliest estimate I heard. Elon said, maybe we can send people to Mars in 2024, to land in early 2025. Mm-hmm. That is not going to happen, because that included 2022 sending a cargo ship to Mars. Mm-hmm. Maybe even a one in 2020. And so I think they're not quite on that schedule. But to win my bet, 2027, I have a chance, and 2029, I have another chance.
Nice.
We're not very good at like backing up and seeing the big picture. We're very distracted by what's going on today and what we can believe because it's happening in front of our face. There's no way that humans going to be landing on Mars, and it's not going to be the only thing everyone is talking about, right? I mean, it's gonna be the moon landing, but even bigger deal, going to another planet, right? And to start a colony, not just to, again, high five and come back. So this is like the 2020s, maybe the 2030s is going to be the new 1960s. We're going to have a space decade. I'm so excited about it. And it's one of the great leaps for all of life happening in our lifetimes. Like, that's wild.